Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is Friday, so you know that means I've answered about 1,000,000 start-sit questions in our live streams so far this week. So I'm going to do my best to go through and try to convince you why some players that I've seen in starting lineups should not be in yours. You should keep them as far away as humanly possible. But before we get into it, make sure you go down there, drop a like on this video, and if you have any questions, if you have any start-sit moves, make sure you drop them down there in the comment section. I'll try to get to as many of those as I can. And also, if you want to check out any of these player props, make sure you go to the link in the description, the link in the comment section. When you sign up to Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK, you can also get your deposit matched dollar for dollar up to 100. And only with promo code FLOCK are you going to get this free Patrick Mahomes bet. So deposit $10 immediately at 20 in your account. Go take the over on Mahomes. I worked my butt off to get you that. And like I said, it's only available for people who use promo code FLOCK. Underdogs in pretty much every state. But I think that should be about it. Let's go through. Let's dive into these players. Starting off with any Los Angeles Ram. Now, I thought this would go without being said, but we've had some people going, oh, okay, well, you got no Allen Robinson. You got no Cooper Kupp. Should we go through? Should we jam in Van Jefferson? And yeah, this past week, Van Jefferson goes against the Kansas City Chiefs in a game where the Rams aren't able to get anything going, and he has a touchdown. Ooh. Bravo, Van Jefferson, in a game where nobody could do anything. He comes away with the touchdown. 6 targets, 3 receptions, 29 receiving yards. Well, if he didn't have that touchdown, even though Van Jefferson's sitting there as the wide receiver 1 for the Los Angeles Rams, what, you're walking away with 5.9 fantasy points? And we need to ask ourselves, can Van Jefferson score touchdowns on a frequent basis going forward? Hell to the no, he cannot. This is a horrendous Los Angeles Rams offense. If we go look at implied team totals this week, the Rams are supposed to be the 3rd worst team, at least the 3rd worst offense in the NFL, literally only ahead of the Indianapolis Colts and the Denver Broncos. So please make sure you don't have Van Jefferson in your starting lineup. And also Kyren Williams. Now I know Kyren Williams played more snaps than Cam Akers. Kyren Williams had a respectable role this past week. He had 11 carries and 3 receptions. And I need to take my L. I said Kyren Williams was not worth a roster spot about a month ago. And now that you have Darrell Henderson cut off this team, now that you have Kyren Williams playing clearly ahead of Akers, hell, I think he is worth a roster spot, but you should not put him in your starting lineup against the Seattle Seahawks, even if the Seahawks have a bad defense. Going back to what we're saying, it's a horrendous offense that cannot move the ball down the field. With those 11 rush attempts, he had 35 rushing yards a week ago. I'm sorry. Until we see otherwise, until the Rams are able to put something together, until Vegas isn't telling us that they're going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL, every Ram should be benched. The only player I'm even going to consider will be Tyler Higbee. Higbee was someone that I was excited about once he had the Kupp injury, just saying, okay, he's going to get every single target imaginable. And with Higbee, yeah, he's still 3rd in the NFL in targets at the tight end position. But going back to what we were saying, does not matter. This team is so bad. Going to another team that is horrendous. Let's go look at Latavius Murray and the Denver Broncos. So if we're looking at implied team totals this week, the Denver Broncos have the lowest implied team total you are going to find. Right now, Las Vegas telling us that, hell, this is going to be the worst offense in the NFL. And with Latavius Murray, he's going up against the Baltimore Ravens. This is just what we said a few weeks back when we were saying, do not start D'Onta Foreman. D'Onta Foreman should not be anywhere close to your starting lineup because the spread on that game was 14 points. They weren't going to be able to effectively run the ball in the slightest. I think you have a very similar game environment here with Latavius Murray. This past week, he saw pretty much every single touch out of the backfield for the Denver Broncos. And this past week, I believe we did rank him, right, as a top 24 running back or pretty close to it. But that was because you're playing the Panthers. If there was ever going to be a game where the Denver Broncos wouldn't have been able to actually be competitive, maybe win the game, maybe score some points, it would have been against the Carolina Panthers, yet they only dropped 10 points. You had 1 target for Latavius, not interested at all. But someone else that's in that game has a good matchup, but I don't want to buy into is Gus Edwards in a full PPR format. This is regardless of what's happening with Dobbins. I'm assuming Dobbins is going to miss this week, but obviously if you were to play, you bench Edwards. But even if Dobbins were to miss, I think Gus Edwards is a running back that should be on your bench. Now I understand Edwards was the clear RB1 last week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Gus Edwards had 16 rushing attempts, got a rushing touchdown as well. So Gus Edwards, double-digit fantasy points. Bravo, he got you 11 fantasy points. But in a full PPR format, he has the most capped ceiling you are ever going to find, where you can assume Edwards going to get to about 50, 60 rushing yards in a 3-man running back by committee. And if he scores 5 or 6 points, all that tells us is he didn't score a touchdown. If he somehow finds his way in the end zone, then bravo, you get up to 11 to 12 points, but nothing past that. If you're looking at what we've had this season, Gus Edwards, a whopping 0 receptions. 0. In 2020, here's the game log for Gus Edwards with his receptions per game. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 2, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 2, 2, 1, 0, 0. The man does not catch the ball out of the backfield. We can go and do that same thing in 2019. 0, 0, 2, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay, I think you get the point by now. Full PPR format. He's in a 3-man running back by committee. You're exclusively relying on a touchdown. I'm not buying into it. Now our next guy is going to be Chase Claypool. We get the report that obviously Darnell Mooney out for the season. Not only is Darnell Mooney out for the season, but Justin Fields is playing. So I think that maybe you end up in a spot where the Chicago Bears are actually able to move the ball down the field against the Green Bay Packers. But I do not care. I am going to maintain our stance that we've had pretty much this entire season, and that it doesn't matter what wide receivers on the Chicago Bears, they cannot be in your starting lineup. Can't happen. Justin Fields has one game with over 200 passing yards this season. And he had 208 in that contest. There's no passing volume whatsoever. Justin Fields himself can be someone that you're going to start because the man has over 800 rushing yards. The man's essentially a running back. But regardless of the other wide receivers in the offense, regardless of who's currently injured, I mean, Chase Claypool's not someone you can start if you have a running back starting at quarterback for the Chicago Bears. But now going over to Michael Gallup, this is a wide receiver that had some highlight grabs on Thanksgiving. Like Gallup looked very good against the Giants, of course. Had 8 targets, which was a season high. He had 5 receptions, 63 receiving yards. And I think Gallup should be on your roster. And I think Michael Gallup in certain contests may actually be a player that you want to go through and start. But this is not going to be the game against the Indianapolis Colts. The reason for this has nothing to do with the Colts defense, but everything to do with the game script. And right now, the Dallas Cowboys are currently 11-point favorites against the Indianapolis Colts here. And what that tells us is this Dallas defense is going to be shutting down, and I repeat, shutting down the Indianapolis Colts offense to a point where Dallas is just going to be running the ball over and over and over again in the second half. So Gallup, you kind of want him when the Cowboys are going up against an elite level offense. If we ever get the Dallas Cowboys going up against the Chiefs, going up against, the Eagles in the fantasy football playoffs, then yeah, you want to go through, you want to jam Michael Gallup in thinking that it could be the highest scoring game of the week, but not this contest where they're not going to have to throw. But now our next spot will be Isaiah Pacheco. With Isaiah Pacheco, a very good week this past week. And with Pacheco, you'll notice he was higher in our rankings last week than he is going to be this week. And the reason for this is while he proves himself, while he is moving up people's rest of season fantasy football rankings, we have to at least look at the fact that he's not catching the ball. And on top of this, with Isaiah Pacheco, this will be a running back that at the same time is not in that good of a matchup. Going up against the Cincinnati Bengals, this Bengals defense has been pretty good this year. I know they have a key defensive players out in this contest, but it doesn't matter too much in that they are not going to look to run the ball. And by they, I mean the Kansas City Chiefs. This past week, yes, you can. You're beating down on the Los Angeles Rams, who were never in the contest. Yeah, run the ball all you can in the second half. But before that, if we're going through and looking at this, you have the Los Angeles Chargers matchup, which is about the best matchup you can ask for as a running back. Then you get the blowout against the Rams, back-to-back very good game environments for Pacheco. I think that this is going to go down to Patrick Mahomes dropping back to throw 50 times this game. And that's not going to be an environment you want to put Pacheco in if he's not going to be running routes. But now let's go over to another running back that is probably going to be better than the other guys on this list. But I do want to say, don't start either Washington Commander. If you looked at our running back rankings video this week, you'll see that they are at the very bottom of the rankings. With Brian Robinson, the man had over 100 rushing yards this past week. The man had 20 receiving yards, which tripled his season total. Now, if we're projecting this going forward, with Brian Robinson, we have to look at the matchup he has against the Giants. Well, yeah, Washington's actually favored in this game. It's not going to be nearly as good of what we had over the past 2 weeks, where we know 2 weeks ago they went up against the Houston Texans, where Antonio Gibson was the guy you wanted in that game. In this past week, they go up against the Atlanta Falcons. So you've had back-to-back very good matchups for the Washington Commander running backs, and I would say that there's a lot of uncertainty on how they're going to deploy the combo of Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, where I wouldn't feel too comfortable starting either running back because I really don't know who it's going to be. Now, our next guy, I mean, we've been saying this for quite some time. I think it's kind of obvious. Paris Campbell, please, nobody think you can start Paris Campbell. I would go through and drop Paris Campbell if I were you. I know he's been better with Matt Ryan under center, but you saw what the floor is this past week. Gets you 3 targets, 2 receptions, 14 receiving yards. I don't know what to tell you. Michael Pittman's the wide receiver 1. This is a team that wants to run the ball with Jonathan Taylor. It's a horrible offense. Paris Campbell's not a special player. So even if you liked what you previously had with Matt Ryan and Paris Campbell, the party's over. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, especially this week going up against the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, if we're looking at the implied team totals according to Las Vegas, you have the Colts as the 2nd worst offense in the NFL this week, only ahead of the Denver Broncos. I mean, if you have a better option than Michael Pittman Jr., I'd definitely be looking for that better option this week in particular. I can't say avoid playing Michael Pittman Jr. at all costs, though, because I know a lot of people are missing wide receivers like DeAndre Hopkins and Hollywood this week. But now going over to our last guy, Darius Slayton, the clear wide receiver 1 here for the New York Giants. I mean, the Giants have just been decimated with injuries. I mean, it seems like they are the unluckiest team in the NFL, and this wide receiver room is cursed. But if we're looking at this game, it is a tough matchup going up against Washington. And on top of this, across the board, the Giants are in pain. If you're looking at the offensive line for the New York Giants, this is a unit that's missing out on the majority of their starters. And we can look at this with the implied team total. We can look at this with the Las Vegas spread, where right now Vegas is telling us the only offenses that are worse than the Giants this week are going to be the Saints, the Rams, the Colts, and the Broncos. And on top of this, Washington's actually favored in this game in New York. So I think people way smarter than us are telling us that the Giants offense is going to be horrendous. That's why on Underdog this week, I actually went through and took the less than 95.5 total yards for Saquon Barkley because Commanders defense is pretty good. This Giants offense is falling apart. But I think that's all I got for you. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, please go down there, drop a like on it, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down there in the comment section. And also in that comment section, you can find a link to Underdog Fantasy where there are all these cool player props. And when you sign up for Underdog with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. And only with promo code FLOCK, because I worked my butt off to get it for you, are you going to get this free Patrick Mahomes bet. But I think that's all I got for you. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I really hope you have a great day, and I hope we get to see you in the live stream tonight.